The night over Metropolis was calm until it wasn't. A thin red cut opened in the sky like a wound. It did not look like lightning. It looked wrong. The air around it shimmered, as if the world forgot how to stay still. People on the street stopped walking. Cars slowed. Heads tipped back. Phones came out. Then something fell. It hit with a deep boom that shook the road. Dust rolled between the buildings. A bus alarm started screaming. Somewhere, glass shattered. A small crowd pushed closer, even though every instinct said to run. A man in a baseball cap lifted his phone higher. "Meteor," he said, like that made it safer. The dust moved again. A boy rose out of the crater, floating. He was young, teenage, slim but not weak. He wore a cheap red cape that looked homemade. His mask was simple. Cloth, eye holes, like a kid playing hero. But he didn't move like a kid. He hovered with perfect balance. Not a wobble, not a breath of fear. His head turned slowly, as if he was counting people. A woman near the front laughed once, nervous. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's like Superman." Right on cue, a crash came from the next block. A car had swerved during the shockwave and slammed into a streetlight. The hood smoked. The driver door was bent. Inside, a man shouted in pain. In the back seat, a little girl cried. "Help!" Someone screamed. The floating boy tilted his head toward the sound. For a second, it looked like he might fly over, like he might save them. He did fly over. He hit the street beside the wreck without even bending his knees. The concrete cracked under his shoes. He stepped to the car, grabbed the frame with one hand, and lifted. The car rose like it weighed nothing. The crowd gasped. The little girl stopped crying, shocked into silence. But the boy's grip tightened. Metal squealed. The engine block crushed. The front axle snapped. The streetlight, still tangled with the car, ripped free and swung. The pole whipped through the air toward the sidewalk where the crowd stood. People screamed and scattered. The boy didn't look at them. He stared at the man in the driver's seat, as if he was studying the inside of a bug. The pole kept swinging. A blur of blue and red slammed into the streetlight and stopped it with both hands. Superman landed between the pole and the crowd, feet planted, cape snapping once. He eased the pole down like it was a fragile thing, not a steel spear. "Everyone back," he said, calm but loud enough to cut through panic. "Now." People ran. Superman looked at the boy. He saw the cape, the mask, the almost familiar posture. And then he saw the eyes behind the cloth. They were not lost. They were not scared. They were flat. Cold. Like someone watching a game they had already decided to win. Superman moved first. Not fast, not aggressive. Just enough to show he was here. "Hey," Superman said. "You're okay. I'm not here to hurt you. Let's talk." The boy didn't answer. He turned his head slowly, and his gaze slid over the city like he was taking it in for the first time. A siren wailed nearby. Superman stepped closer. "What's your name?" The boy's shoulders rose a little. A tiny inhale. Then his eyes brightened. Red light bled out through the mask's eye holes. "Stop!" Superman snapped. Not angry, just urgent. Heat vision fired. Superman moved into the line of it before it could reach the fleeing crowd. The beam hit his chest and spread across the S-shield like a hot line on steel. It hurt. Not much. But it was real. Superman's expression changed. Not fear. Not panic. Concern. "You don't want to do this," he said, softer now. The boy cut the beam and shot up. Straight up. No spiral. No effort. Just a red streak that punched through the low clouds and vanished. Superman followed into the air, but he stopped after a second. He didn't chase into the dark sky without knowing where the boy would go. If the boy turned and fired again, it could slice a building. It could hit a plane. So Superman hovered high above Metropolis, listening. He heard the city, screams fading, sirens growing, a mother calling a child's name, police radios, and somewhere far away, he heard a faint crackle like a quiet signal riding on the wind. Not Kryptonian, not anything he recognized. Superman lowered to the street and helped pull the bent door open. He carried the injured man out. He checked the little girl first. She clung to him and whispered, "Are you Superman?" "Yes," he said, "and you're safe." But his eyes lifted again to the sky, because the question wasn't about him anymore. It was about the boy who looked like a hero costume and used it like a warning. The watchtower was quiet the way a hospital hallway was quiet, not peaceful, just tense. Victor Stone stood at a wide screen that curved around the room. Data moved in clean lines. Video clips looped in the center. The crater, the floating boy, the bent streetlight, the red beam. Cyborg's human eye blinked slower than normal. His other eye, the one made of light, never blinked. He ran the clip again, then slowed it down until every tiny motion became clear. "No stumble," he muttered. "No hesitation. He's stable in the air like he's done it his whole life." Behind him, the rest of the League gathered. Batman stood with his arms folded, cape hanging still. His face was stone. He watched the clip like it was a crime scene. Wonder Woman stood tall and calm, but her jaw was tight. Flash leaned forward, hands on his knees, as if the screen might jump at him. Martian Manhunter stood near the back, quiet. He looked less at the video and more at the people watching it. Superman entered last. He did not float in like a god. He walked. His shoulders were heavy. "All right," Batman said. "Start with what we know, not guesses." Cyborg nodded. The impact wasn't normal. "There's a distortion signature before the fall, like a tear between places." Flash lifted a hand. "Like multiverse stuff?" Cyborg glanced at him. "Could be, or a portal, or a tech jump. I can't label it yet." Batman's white eyes narrowed. "The boy's power set?" Cyborg tapped the air. The screen split into small boxes. "Flight," he said. "High speed, strength beyond human, heat vision. And his body is dense. The street impact didn't even slow him." Wonder Woman's voice was steady, like Kryptonian. Superman didn't flinch at the word. He just looked at the frozen frame of the boy in the air. "Similar," Superman said, "but not the same." Batman turned slightly toward him. "You felt it?" "Yes," Superman admitted. "The beam. It wasn't enough to injure me badly, but it was strong." And he aimed toward civilians. He did not care. Flash swallowed. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he panicked. Batman's voice cut through. "He didn't panic. That's the problem." Martian Manhunter spoke at last. "There is something strange about his mind." Everyone looked at John. "I tried to listen from a distance," John said. "Only a touch. His thoughts are closed, sharp, like a locked box." Superman stepped forward. "Did you sense fear?" John paused. "No." Batman's head tilted. "Anger?" "Yes," John said. "And hunger, not for food, for control." Cyborg brought up another image, a blurry shot from a traffic camera, the boy hovering over a street. A few frames later, a symbol carved into a metal sign. "Also this," Cyborg said. "We found it near the impact area and again 2 blocks away. It's the same mark." Batman stared at it longer than anyone. A calling card. Superman's tone stayed calm, but a thin edge entered it. Or a sign. Maybe it means something to him. Batman didn't look away. "We don't wait to find out by letting him practice on a city." Wonder Woman stepped between them a little, not physically, but with presence. "We can agree on this. We must find him before someone else does." Flash pointed at the screen, trying to sound helpful. Okay, so, we find him. We talk. Clark talks. Clark is good at talking. Batman's mouth moved slightly, almost a smile, but it wasn't friendly. And if talking fails, Superman met his gaze. Then we protect people. Batman's voice stayed even. That's not an answer. Cyborg cleared his throat. I'm running a global scan. Any repeat signature like that red tear, any heat spikes, any unexplained craters. But if he's fast enough, he is, Superman said. He can cross states in seconds if he wants. Silence fell. Then, a soft sound pinged from the watchtower system. Flash looked down at a small tablet strapped to his arm. We just got an automated repair notice. Batman didn't move. For what? Flash read it, blinking. Metropolis City Transit. Emergency structural damage assessment. Estimated cost? Extremely bad. Cyborg stared at him. You're kidding. Flash lifted both hands. I'm not. The watchtower syncs with city emergency systems. It's supposed to help coordinate aid. I guess it also sends invoices. Wonder Woman exhaled once, almost amused, then caught herself. Even Superman's mouth twitched, but the worry stayed. Batman's voice went cold again. Focus. Cyborg nodded and expanded the scan map. There's something else. The energy pattern around him doesn't match Krypton. It's different. Like a cousin, not a twin. Superman looked at the map. Can you track him? Not directly, Cyborg said, but we can set nets, watch for flight streaks, heat spikes, atmospheric disruptions. Batman's eyes narrowed. And we can bait. Superman turned fast. No. Batman didn't blink. We need a way to bring him into the open. We don't use people as bait, Superman said. Batman's voice stayed flat. We do if the alternative is letting him pick victims at random. Wonder Woman held up a hand. Enough. We will split tasks. Victor, track. Bruce, plan. But you do not act alone. Clark, you lead contact if we find him. Batman's head angled slightly. And if he attacks, Superman answered. Simple. Then we stop him. Batman's eyes didn't soften. How? Superman didn't give the answer Batman wanted, without becoming him. John watched them both. In his mind, he could feel the shape of the conflict forming. Not a fight of fists, a fight of choices. Cyborg's screen suddenly flashed. A line of data shot across it, then vanished. Cyborg's fingers moved faster than most people could see. Something just pinged the signature again, very faint, like an echo. Where? Batman asked. Cyborg pulled up a rough location. Rural, outside Metropolis range, Midwest. Superman's eyes lifted. Kansas? Batman's cape shifted. That's not random. Superman's jaw tightened. He thought of a farm, of a ship, of being a boy who could lift a truck and didn't know why. Go, Batman said. Superman was already moving. He shot out of the watchtower like a red-blue comet. But his face was not heroic in that moment. It was afraid of what he might find, because he had seen that look behind the mask, and it wasn't the look of someone who wanted help. The boy moved through the night as if roads were suggestions. He didn't fly low. Low meant trees, wires, headlights. Low meant people. He liked high. Up there, the air was cold and clean. The stars didn't blink. The world looked small. He could hear things if he wanted. He could hear a dog bark from miles away. He could hear a couple whispering in a house. He could hear the soft click of a phone being plugged in. But he didn't listen. He listened to something else. A voice. Not a voice like a person. Not words in the air. Words in his head. Firm and simple. Like rules. Take the world. He didn't remember when it started. Or maybe he did. But he didn't care. He remembered being smaller. A quiet kid. A boy on a farm. A mother who hugged him too tight. a father who tried to teach him how to be normal. He remembered his bedroom and the sound of a spaceship hum behind the walls of the barn, hidden like a secret that wanted to breathe. He remembered waking up one night and walking into the field without shoes. He remembered the symbol burning in his mind before he ever drew it. He didn't have a name that mattered anymore. Names were for people who needed to be called back. He didn't need to be called. He could go anywhere. He dropped down now, far from the city, into a stretch of land with tall grass and an old wooden barn that leaned to one side. He landed inside, careful this time. Not because he feared damage, because he liked the sound of things staying quiet when he chose. Dust floated in the moonlight through cracks in the boards. He looked down at his hands. He flexed his fingers. He could feel the strength in them like a tool, like a lever that could move the world. His eyes shifted to a rusted tractor in the corner. He walked to it, wrapped one hand around a metal bar, and lifted. The tractor rose off the ground, silent in his grip. He held it there, one-handed, and felt nothing at all. No pride, no joy, just certainty. He set it down and turned his head. Far away, a red-blue streak had crossed the sky. Fast. Not a plane, not a satellite. Someone like him. No, someone pretending to be better than him. The boy's face stayed still behind the mask, but something hot moved in his chest. Not fear, not excitement. Challenge. He stepped out of the barn and looked toward the horizon. Toward the glow of distant cities. He thought of the man in blue who had stepped into his beam. He thought of how that man did not burn. He thought of the crowd running, and how the noise annoyed him, and how the silence afterward felt clean. His eyes flickered red for a second, then faded. He lifted into the sky again, slow at first, and then faster until the air cracked behind him. The voice in his head did not change. Take the world. He didn't question it. He just moved. Lex Luthor watched the footage like it was a new kind of gold. He sat alone in a high office above Metropolis. The city lights spread under him like a map of things to own. The screen showed the boy floating. It paused on the heat vision beam hitting Superman. Lex leaned forward slightly. So, he said to himself, voice soft. Not Kryptonian. But close. He tapped a finger on the desk. And young. His assistant stood a few steps away, nervous to breathe too loudly. Lex didn't look at him. I want every scrap of data, traffic cams, satellite angles, phone videos, anything. Yes, Mr. Luthor. And I want it quiet, Lex added. No leaks, no panic. Panic makes people stupid, and stupid people break things before you can buy them. The assistant nodded fast and left. Lex replayed the moment the beam hit Superman. He watched Superman's face shift. That was the best part. Not the beam. Not the power. The change in Superman's eyes. Concern. Worry. Superman had spent years being the strongest man on Earth. He had spent years being the symbol. Now something had made him step back. Lex smiled. Welcome, he whispered to the boy on the screen. You don't even know how useful you are. He opened a secure channel on his desk. A list of names appeared. Scientists, contractors, quiet problem solvers. Lex selected a team. Begin, he said. Find the source. Find the weakness. And if you can't find a weakness, his smile thinned. Make one. In a government room with no windows, Amanda Waller watched the same footage without smiling once. Her face didn't change. Her eyes didn't soften. She looked at the boy the way a person looked at a fire in a dry forest. She didn't hate fire. She respected it. Because fire didn't care about your feelings. A man in a suit cleared his throat. The Justice League is handling it. Waller didn't look at him. The Justice League handles a lot of things. Sometimes they handle them too late. She clicked a remote and paused on the frame where the boy's beam aimed toward the crowd. "That," she said, "is a threat, and it is a child, which makes it worse. Children make choices for stupid reasons." The man shifted. "What do you recommend?" Waller's voice stayed calm. "We prepare. Quietly. We build options. We do not wait for the League to decide what their morals allow." She stood and walked to a board on the wall. Names and files, contingencies, emergency plans. She wrote one new line in thick marker. "Unknown alien minor, extreme risk." Under it she wrote 2 words. "Control first." A phone buzzed on the table. Waller picked it up, listened, and said, "Yes, move the teams." She hung up and looked back at the paused image of the boy floating over the street. "Let's see," she said, barely audible. "Who gets to him first?" Far beyond Earth's orbit, a mind that did not sleep tilted its attention. Brainiac's ship drifted in black space like a cold thought. A green glow rolled across the ship's surface in smooth patterns, as if the hull was alive. Inside, Brainiac did not walk to screens. Screens came to him. A new signal had appeared in the wide web of the universe. A tear, a breach, a transfer of matter between realities. Rare, interesting, valuable. Brainiac's voice, when it spoke, was not loud. It did not need to be. "Anomaly detected," it said. Data folded into shapes. A young being. High output, flight, heat projection, extreme durability. And on the same world, a known specimen. Kryptonian survivor. Kal-El. Brainiac had studied Krypton, had collected pieces of its history. But this was different. This was a variant. A cousin line. Similar strength. Different mind. Brainiac's interest sharpened. "Acquire," it commanded. Small pods detached from the ship like seeds from a plant. They slid into a launch tube and vanished toward Earth, leaving no trail. Brainiac did not hurry. It did not rush. It simply moved closer to something new to own. "Earth," Brainiac said almost gently. "You continue to surprise." Superman found the scan echo, but it wasn't like finding a person in a crowd. It was like finding a missing note in a song. He moved across the Midwest at a speed that bent clouds. He listened for screams. None. He listened for heat, for sudden damage, for anything. Mostly he heard normal life. A late-night truck engine, a baby crying, a coyote yipping in the distance. Then, for 1 second, he heard something else. A short, sharp crack in the air. A sonic pop made by something moving too fast, too close to the ground. Superman slowed hard and hovered over a stretch of farmland. He saw a barn. Old. Leaning. He saw a long line in the grass where something had landed and lifted off. He lowered, careful, and stepped inside. Dust. Rust. Quiet. His eyes scanned. A tractor had a hand-shaped dent in its frame, like someone had squeezed it like clay. Superman touched the dent with 2 fingers. He didn't need to guess. He knew the kind of strength it took. He heard a soft creak above him. He looked up. Nothing. But he felt the air shift. He turned, and the boy hit him. Not a punch that a normal person would throw. A straight drive, fast and hard, like a missile with a shoulder. Superman flew backward through the barn wall and into the field. Boards exploded into splinters. Superman rolled once and stopped, feet digging a trench. He stood up slowly, hands open. The boy hovered 10 feet above the ground, cape hanging behind him. His mask hid his face, but the stillness of him spoke loud. Superman kept his voice calm. "I'm not here to fight you." The boy didn't answer. Superman tried again, simple. "You're far from the city. That's good. No one has to get hurt." The boy's eyes brightened red. Superman moved forward in a blur, and grabbed the boy's wrist before the beam fired. The boy's arm didn't budge like a kid's arm. It was like grabbing a steel cable. The boy twisted and slipped free with a sharp jerk, fast enough that Superman's grip missed. Then the boy flew backward and up, putting distance between them. He tilted his head, watching Superman like Superman was the test. Superman floated up to meet him, careful to stay above the field and away from the farmhouse lights in the distance. "Listen," Superman said. "Whatever you are, whatever happened?" The boy shot forward again. Superman met him midair. They collided with a loud crack that rolled over the land like thunder. Superman caught the boy by the shoulders and tried to push him down, to pin him without hurting him. The boy's heat vision flashed. Superman turned his head, taking the beam across his shoulder instead of his face. The pain stung. Not crippling, but real. The boy leaned in, trying to press the beam closer. Superman forced his voice out through the pressure. "Stop!" The boy didn't stop. Superman did what he hated doing. He used more strength. He shoved the boy hard enough to break the lock and send him flying upward. The boy tumbled once in the air, then caught himself instantly, like gravity didn't exist for him. He stared. Then he flew straight up, faster than before, and vanished into the clouds again. Superman followed for half a second, and stopped. Because he heard the farmhouse door open. He heard a woman step onto a porch and look up, confused, scared. Superman dropped back down and landed softly near the porch. He put on a friendly face that felt heavy tonight. "Ma'am," he said, "are you okay?" The woman stared at him. What was that? Superman looked at the sky. "Something dangerous, but I'm handling it." She didn't look convinced. Superman didn't blame her. As he lifted off again, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not doubt in himself, doubt in what the world would do next. Because now he knew the boy wasn't just lost. He was hunting for something, and Superman didn't know what. By morning, the League had a working rule. Find him. Talk, if possible. Keep people safe. Do not panic the world. It wasn't a plan that made Batman comfortable. It wasn't a plan that made Superman proud. But it was what they had. And above them, far beyond what any news camera could see, small machines slipped into orbit. They moved like insects. Brainiac's probes did not rush. They placed themselves with purpose. Then one probe fired a thin beam at a satellite cluster. The beam did not explode anything. It simply cut a clean line through metal. Satellites broke apart like toys, and the pieces began to fall. The watchtower alarm hit like a slap. Cyborg screens filled with red markers. Flash was mid-sentence about, maybe we should get coffee that isn't watchtower recycled, when the system pinged again. Then it pinged again. Then again. Flash looked at his wrist tablet and groaned. Oh no. Not again. Wonder Woman turned toward him, annoyed. "Barry!" "It's not me," Flash said fast. He held up the tablet. "We got, 6 damage notices in 10 seconds. Batman's voice cut in. "Read the real alert." Cyborg's jaw tightened. "Satellite impacts. Multiple. Pieces are entering the atmosphere. Some are headed toward the ocean. Some are headed toward the coast." Superman was already moving. "I'll handle the debris." Wonder Woman stepped with him. "I'm coming." Flash pointed at the screen. Wait, look. Those cuts are too clean." Cyborg zoomed in. The satellite pieces weren't torn by normal stress. They were sliced. Batman's voice went low. Someone did this on purpose. Martian Manhunter's eyes narrowed. The anomaly has drawn attention. Cyborg's systems chimed again, softer this time, a different tone. He stared at the new data line. "We just got a faint match to the same signature, above the atmosphere. Something is pinging us." Batman's mouth tightened. "We're being tested." Superman didn't argue. He didn't have time. He launched. Wonder Woman followed, riding the invisible pressure of her own speed through the air. Flash vanished in a red blur, already on comms, already sending evacuation warnings to coastal cities. Cyborg took the watchtower controls and locked onto the source of the cuts. And Batman stood for 1 second in the center of it all, still as a statue. He didn't move yet. He planned. Then he spoke into comms. "Clark, you're not alone up there." Superman's voice came back, steady. "I know." Batman's eyes narrowed at the orbit map, because he saw it. A small cluster of objects, moving like they were alive. And he saw where they were moving next. Toward Earth, toward cities, toward people, and possibly toward the boy. Superman hit the upper air first. The wind screamed around him. The curve of Earth spread under him like a map. Chunks of satellite metal burned orange as they fell. Some would burn out. Some would not. Superman moved in clean bursts, catching the biggest pieces and throwing them into safe arcs over the ocean. He didn't throw them like weapons. He threw them like problems that needed to land where no one lived. A large panel broke in half mid-fall. Superman split into 2 blurs. No, not 2. Just so fast it looked like 2. He caught both halves and pushed them down into the water. A white splash rose miles high. "Clark," Cyborg said in his ear, "there's something else." "I know," Superman answered. He could see the probes now, small, green glowing, moving in patterns. One darted past him, too fast for a normal drone, and fired a narrow beam at the air around him. A net formed, not a physical net, a field. Pressure and pull. It tugged at Superman's body like invisible hands. Superman flexed, pushed through it, and tore out. But it had slowed him for a second. That second mattered. A second probe fired at a falling chunk of debris and redirected it, aiming it toward a ship far out at sea. Superman cursed under his breath and shot down. He caught the debris 30 feet above the ship and lowered it into the water like a heavy rock. On the deck, sailors pointed and shouted and cheered. Superman didn't wave. He looked back up, because something had just entered the sky. A red streak. Fast. The boy. He was drawn to the probes like a shark drawn to blood. Not to help, not to save, to prove he could tear them apart. The boy hit the first probe with his shoulder and ripped it in half. Green light spilled out like glowing oil. The boy didn't even look at the pieces. He flew straight to the next one. The probe reacted fast. It fired a stronger net. The net wrapped around the boy and tightened. For half a second, the boy stopped in the air. Superman's heart jumped. Not because he thought the net would hold, because he knew what the boy would do next. The boy's eyes flared. Heat vision blasted out, not at the net, but at the probe itself. The beam cut clean through it. The probe exploded, and the net collapsed. Pieces of hot metal sprayed outward. Superman shot forward and blocked the worst of it with his body, then swatted the rest into space. "Clark," Wonder Woman said in his ear, arriving behind him, "that is not hero behavior." "I know," Superman said, tight. Wonder Woman watched the boy for a second, and her warrior brain made a quick decision. She launched toward him. She didn't swing first. She spoke. "You!" she called, voice carrying through the thin air like it belonged there. "Stop attacking blindly. You will kill people." The boy paused in the air for the first time since he arrived. He looked at her. He looked at the golden armor, the confidence, the authority. Then he moved. He flew toward her like a bullet. Wonder Woman met him head on. She caught him by the shoulders, same as Superman had tried. The impact cracked the air. Wonder Woman's boots pushed a small trail through the clouds as she held her ground in the sky. The boy tried to twist away. She kept her grip and pulled him close, forcing eye contact. "Listen to me," she said, low and firm. You have power. That means you must. The boy's heat vision fired. Wonder Woman turned her bracers up fast, crossing them. The beams hit the metal and scattered in bright red lines. One stray line shot past her and grazed a probe. The probe adjusted instantly and fired a beam toward the surface of Earth. Superman saw it. He moved between the beam and Earth, taking it on his chest. It was not heat. It was scanning, measuring, copying. Superman gritted his teeth and grabbed the probe. He crushed it in his fist. Above him, Wonder Woman forced the boy down a few feet, not to harm him, but to control his aim. "You will not fire at the world," she snapped. The boy's face behind the mask didn't change, but his body did. He jerked forward, head-butting Wonder Woman. The hit would have killed a normal person. Wonder Woman's head snapped back. Her grip loosened for a fraction of a second. The boy ripped free and kicked her in the stomach. Wonder Woman flew backward through a cloud bank, catching herself, angry now. "Okay," she muttered, and her tone changed. "No more talking." Superman shot to her side. "Diana!" She held up a hand. "I know. But he is not listening." The boy hovered a short distance away, watching them both now. He looked like a small shape in the sky, but the way he held himself made him feel bigger than the clouds. A probe behind him opened its hole like a flower opening. A heavier net unfolded. This one looked designed for something stronger. It fired at the boy. The field grabbed him, pulled him, and tried to fold him inward like a trapped insect. The boy stopped moving. For 1 second, his cape hung still. Superman felt a strange hope rise in him. Maybe this would slow the boy. Maybe it would force him to calm down. Then the boy screamed. Not a human scream of fear. A raw scream of rage. His heat vision blasted out in a wide sweep. He carved through the net's anchors. He sliced through 2 probes at once. The field collapsed violently, like a rubber band snapping. The backlash wave hit Superman and Wonder Woman and shoved them apart. Flash's voice crackled into comms. Guys? I'm down here trying to keep people from freaking out. And also the Coast Guard just asked if we can please stop dropping space junk near boats." Cyborg cut in. "Barry, focus on evacuation. Clark, Diana, there's a signal source. It's like a sky anchor. It's sitting higher than the probes. If we destroy it, the formation might lose coordination." Batman's voice joined, colder. "Do it. Now." Superman glanced at Wonder Woman. "I'll go." Wonder Woman's eyes stayed on the boy. "I'll keep him busy." Superman hesitated. "Diana." She didn't look away. "I'm not letting him point those eyes at Earth again." Superman shot upward, leaving a shockwave behind him. Wonder Woman turned toward the boy and flew in. This time, she didn't try to reason. She moved with clean skill. She swung her lasso in a bright gold loop, aiming not at his neck, but at his arms. The boy darted aside. The lasso snapped past him and wrapped around a probe instead. Wonder Woman yanked, using the probe's own weight to pull herself into a tighter angle. She closed distance fast and kicked the boy in the side. He spun, but didn't fall. He snapped back and grabbed her ankle. The grip was steel. Wonder Woman felt the force in it, felt that it was not normal strength. But she had fought gods and monsters. She twisted and used his grip as leverage, flipping herself and planting her other boot into his chest. The hit drove him backward. For the first time, the boy's body language changed. He wasn't curious now. He wasn't testing. He was angry. He flew at her again, faster than before. Wonder Woman caught his next strike on her bracers, then punched him square in the face. The mask cracked. Under it, she saw a flash of skin, a cheek, a mouth set in a hard line, and eyes that didn't look like a lost child's eyes. They looked like a king's eyes. He fired heat vision at point-blank range. Wonder Woman crossed her bracers again. The beam bounced. One red line shot past and cut the edge of a cloud, turning water into steam in a clean trail. Below, people would see it. They would point. They would scream. The boy didn't care. Wonder Woman grabbed the lasso and snapped it forward again. This time, it wrapped around his wrist. The lasso tightened with truth and magic. Wonder Woman pulled hard and shouted, "Who are you?" For a split second, the boy's body stiffened, like the lasso tried to force something out. His mouth opened. And nothing came. Not because he couldn't talk, because he refused. The lasso pulled again, and his eyes flared red. He yanked the lasso, dragging Wonder Woman forward, then slammed his forehead into hers. The hit rang like metal. Wonder Woman's grip loosened. The lasso slipped off his wrist. The boy shot away from her and looked toward the edge of the sky where Superman had gone. As if he knew the real threat wasn't the probes. It was the man who wouldn't stop trying to save him. High above them, Superman reached the sky anchor. It looked like a small platform floating in orbit, wrapped in green light. Not a satellite, not human. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Superman didn't hesitate. He grabbed it with both hands and pulled. The platform fought back with a gravity field, trying to hold itself in place. Superman strained, muscles tight, cape snapping. He drove his strength into it and ripped it free. The green light flickered. The probes below wobbled. Their patterns breaking. Cyborg's voice came fast. "You did it. Their coordination is dropping." Batman's voice followed. "Finish it." Superman crushed the platform. Green light spilled out and faded into space like mist. Below, two probes spun out of formation and drifted away. One probe, damaged, fired a last data burst. A thin green line shot outward, away from Earth. Superman saw it and tried to catch it like you could catch a beam. He couldn't. It was already gone. He returned to the battle below, and his stomach sank. Because the probes weren't just attacking, they were learning. And now they had learned enough. The remaining probes pulled back, slipping toward the dark edge of space. They didn't retreat like scared animals. They retreated like scouts who had finished a job. Wonder Woman hovered in place, breathing hard. Armor scratched. The boy hovered farther away, cape fluttering, mask cracked. He watched the probes leave, not relieved, not satisfied, just thinking. Superman approached slowly, hands open again, voice calm again, even though his heart raced. "It's over," Superman said. "They're leaving." The boy's gaze snapped to him. Superman tried one more time. "You don't have to fight everyone you see." The boy didn't answer. He looked down at Earth, at the cities, at the tiny moving lights. Then he looked back at Superman, like he was making a decision. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He just shot downward. Not toward the ocean, not toward empty land, toward Metropolis. Superman moved fast to cut him off. Wonder Woman followed. Flash's voice crackled in, frantic now. "Guys, people are filming. Like, a lot of people." Cyborg's voice came tight. "Metropolis cameras are already live streaming. Clark, we need to keep him away from crowds." Superman accelerated. He caught up to the boy above the city skyline, above glass towers and rooftop helipads. He flew in front of the boy and held out a hand. "Stop," Superman said, not shouting, but firm. The boy stopped. For 1 second, the two of them hovered face to face above the heart of the city. Below, thousands of people looked up. Phones pointed like tiny mirrors. The boy tilted his head, mask cracked, red eyes faintly glowing. Superman felt the city holding its breath, and he realized the boy had chosen this place on purpose. Not because he wanted people, because he wanted witnesses. Superman spoke in a softer tone, just for the boy. "Please, come with me. We can find answers. We can..." The boy's eyes flared brighter. Superman moved instantly, grabbing the boy and turning them both upward so any beam would go into the sky instead of the city. The heat vision fired anyway. It cut past Superman's shoulder and lit the clouds red. Superman clenched his jaw, held the boy tighter, and rocketed straight up, pulling the fight away from buildings. Wonder Woman rose beside them, ready to strike if she had to. Below, the crowd didn't know what they were seeing. They just saw Superman struggling with someone who looked like a child, and they saw the red light, and they heard the distant thunder of impacts in the sky. Cyborg's systems pinged again. Flash looked down at his tablet mid-run, eyes wide. No, 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 no. Batman's voice came through comms. What? Flash swallowed. Metropolis City Transit just sent another repair invoice. Batman didn't answer. Flash read it anyway. Voice small. Emergency structural damage assessment. Ongoing. He looked up at the sky, where Superman and the boy became two small dots, moving too fast to track. Flash whispered, "This is going to be a long week." Up in the clouds, Superman finally broke the boy's beamline by shifting his grip and twisting their bodies. The boy thrashed, fast and strong. Superman didn't punch. He didn't slam the boy into anything. He held him, like you held a wild animal that could tear your throat out, and he tried to keep his voice steady. "I'm not your enemy," Superman said. The boy stopped struggling for half a heartbeat. Superman felt it. He leaned into that tiny pause. "You're young," Superman said. "You can still choose." The boy's head tilted, slow. Then his eyes flared again. And in that moment, Superman understood something hard. The boy wasn't confused. He wasn't scared. He wasn't even lost. He was simply doing what he believed he was made to do. Superman released him before the beam could fire again, pushing him away into open sky. The boy shot backward, stopped, and hovered. He stared at Superman and Wonder Woman. Then he turned his head toward the dark edge of space, where the last probe lights had faded. Almost like he knew something out there had been watching. Then he dropped straight down, faster than a falling star, and vanished into the clouds over the city. Superman followed, but the boy's speed and sudden angles made him hard to predict. He wasn't flying like Clark. He was moving like a dart thrown by a cruel hand. Cyborg's voice came tight. "Clark, he's breaking line of sight on every camera." He knows how to disappear. Batman's voice was calm, but it carried weight. He's learning. Superman's stomach tightened, because Batman was right. The probes had learned, and the boy had learned too. Down below, a shaky phone video caught one last clear shot. The boy hovered for a second above a rooftop, cape fluttering, and looked down at the crowd as if they were nothing. Then he launched away, leaving a red streak that cut across the sky. The clip hit the internet in minutes. The headline started before the League even regrouped. Alien boy over Metropolis. Second Superman? New threat? In the watchtower, Batman stared at the orbit map where the probes had been. He didn't need a telepath to feel it. Something bigger had just tested Earth. And it had not come for Superman. It had come for the boy. And now the whole world had seen him. Lois Lane had covered alien invasions, gods falling out of the sky, and criminals in clown makeup who liked cameras too much. This was different, because the footage looked like a child. A small body in a red cape, a cloth mask, thin arms, a kid-sized frame, and then the red beam cut the clouds. And Superman shifted his own body in front of it. Lois watched the clip again on a tablet at her desk in the Daily Planet. Around her, the newsroom buzzed like a beehive. Phones rang, producers argued. Editors shouted for headlines that wouldn't get them sued. Jimmy Olsen slid into the chair next to her, eyes wide. "They're calling him Superboy online." Lois didn't look up. They can call him whatever they want. It doesn't make him safe. Jimmy swallowed. Is he like Clark? Lois paused. Just a second. She didn't answer the question the way Jimmy meant it. He's not like Clark, she said. Not where it counts. On the big screen above the bullpen, a host pointed at a freeze frame of the boy hovering over Metropolis. A second Kryptonian? A new hero? A new threat? The Justice League refuses to comment. Lois closed her eyes for a beat. Clark would comment if he could. Clark would want to calm people down. But if Clark wasn't commenting, it meant he was busy. Busy meant the boy was still out there. And Lois had seen the way Clark's face looked in the last few seconds of the clip, right before the boy dropped into the clouds and vanished. It wasn't anger. It was worry. Lois stood up, grabbed her coat, and called over her shoulder. "Jimmy, you're with me." Jimmy popped up. "Where are we going?" Lois tucked the tablet under her arm. Anywhere that has answers before the internet decides the story. As they walked out, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Be careful. This one is not lost. It is listening." Lois stared at it. Then she looked up at the bright Metropolis morning and felt cold anyway. Clark Kent stood on a rooftop above Metropolis and watched people watch the sky. Kids pointed. Tourists filmed. Office workers slowed and craned their necks like they expected another red streak at any second. Clark's hearing caught small pieces of fear everywhere. He almost hit the building. Superman was fighting him. That kid was aiming at people. Clark's hands curled and uncurled at his sides. He wanted to do what he always did. Speak. Smile. Promise. But every promise needed to be true. And right now, he could not promise the boy wouldn't come back tonight. He heard a soft whoosh behind him. A cape. Batman landed without drama, like a shadow deciding to become solid. Clark didn't turn. "You're early." Batman's voice was flat. "You didn't sleep." Clark exhaled. "No." They stood in silence for a moment, both looking down at the street. Batman finally said, "He chose the city, for witnesses." Clark nodded once. "I felt that too." Batman's jaw tightened. "He's not a lost traveler. He's an expanding problem." Clark turned now, meeting the white eyes in the cowl. "He's still a kid, Bruce." Batman didn't flinch. "He's still a threat." Clark's voice stayed calm, but it had weight. "You already made a file." Batman didn't deny it. "Yes." Clark's eyes narrowed. "You named it." Batman said it like it was just a label, not a judgment. "Brightburn." Clark blinked. "Why?" Batman's gaze shifted to the skyline, where a thin line of clouds still showed the scar of red heat from last night. "Because he burns bright," Batman said, "and he burns without care." Clark's mouth tightened. "That's not a name. That's a verdict." Batman took a step closer. "It's a warning. For us." Clark held Batman's stare. "Promise me you won't go after him alone." Batman's voice stayed even. "Promise me you won't freeze when it matters." Clark's eyes flashed with pain, not anger. "I don't freeze." Batman's answer was quiet. "You did last night. For half a second. You wanted him to be you." Clark looked away, because it was true. He had seen a small figure in a cape and a mask, and for one dangerous second, his heart had jumped with an impossible hope. Batman's voice softened by a tiny amount. "I'm not saying we stop trying. I'm saying we stop pretending the child part makes him safe." Clark nodded once, slowly. "Then we do this together." Batman didn't smile, but he didn't argue. In Clark's ear, the watchtower comms chimed. Cyborg's voice came through, tense. "League, we have movement. Not him. The aftermath." Clark tapped the comm. "Talk to me." Cyborg answered. Governments are stepping in, hard. Waller is calling for a closed meeting, and Lex Luthor just announced he's funding a public safety initiative against alien threats. Batman's cape shifted like an annoyed breath. Of course he did. Clark's stomach sank. Victor, any trace of the boy? Cyborg hesitated. Not direct. But we have a pattern. The symbol is showing up. 3 new locations overnight. Batman's head angled. Where? Cyborg put the locations on their shared map. Clark saw it too. A line. Not random. Like the boy was drawing a path. And the end of that path pointed toward something Clark knew better than anyone. A place where answers lived. And where Kryptonian secrets slept under ice. The Fortress of Solitude. In the watchtower, Victor Stone stared at his screens like they were daring him to blink first. 3 locations, 3 marks, the same simple symbol cut into metal and stone. Cyborg zoomed in on the newest one, a highway sign outside Metropolis, a clean carving, like a razor had done it. Only no razor on Earth moved like that. Barry Allen leaned over his shoulder and whispered, "Do we have to pay for that sign, too?" Victor didn't look away. "Probably." Barry winced. "Great. My taxes are gonna..." Victor held up a hand. "Barry." Barry snapped his mouth shut, then pointed at another screen. "Those are government channels lighting up, right?" Victor nodded. Waller's office, military, Homeland Security. Half of them are asking if the League has control of the situation. Barry's voice went small. "Do we?" Victor didn't answer. He didn't like lying, and he didn't like telling the truth out loud. On another screen, a live feed from Luthor Corp played in a window. Lex. Luthor stood at a podium, perfect suit, perfect smile, cameras flashing. "My fellow citizens," Lex said, smooth as oil. "Yesterday we saw a frightening event. We also saw something else. We saw that even our greatest heroes were caught off guard." Victor's metal fingers curled. Lex continued. "Metropolis deserves safety that does not depend on surprise. That is why Luthor Corp is partnering with global leaders to develop defensive tools. Tools that protect humanity." Barry muttered. "He means tools that make him rich," Victor said, "and tools that make him powerful." Across the room, Diana sat with arms folded, eyes fixed on the screen. Her face was calm, but Victor could feel the anger under it, like heat under stone. John stood near the window, silent and still, as if he was listening to the whole planet at once. Batman entered without being announced. He walked straight to Victor's main console. "Show me the symbol timeline," Batman said. Victor pulled it up. First mark was near the crater. Second was 2 blocks away. Third was the Kansas barn Superman checked. Then 3 overnight. Batman studied the map. He's drawing routes. He's learning geography. Barry rubbed his face. "Why would he do that? Like, for fun?" Batman's voice stayed flat. "For ownership." Superman arrived a moment later. He looked at the Lex feed and frowned. "Lex is pushing fear," Superman said. Batman didn't look up. "Lex pushes whatever he can control," Diana's voice cut in. "And Waller will push force." As if on cue, a watchtower alert chimed. Victor's screen flashed with an incoming secure request. From A. Waller. Urgent meeting request. Immediate. Barry lifted a hand. "Can we decline?" Batman said. "No." Superman's jaw tightened. "We go. We listen. We don't give her a weapon." Batman's eyes flicked to him. "We already have a weapon problem. The boy is the weapon. The question is who aims him." John finally spoke, voice soft. "Or whether he aims himself." Victor swallowed, because that was the scariest answer. Amanda Waller sat at the head of a long table and watched the Justice League walk in like they owned the room. To be fair, they usually did. Superman looked like a storm held inside a man. Batman looked like he didn't need a chair. Wonder Woman looked like she could break the table if she wanted. Cyborg looked like the future. The Flash looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Waller didn't stand. She didn't smile. "Thank you for coming," she said. Batman's voice was dry. "You didn't invite. You summoned." Waller's eyes didn't move. "Yes, because this isn't a charity meeting. This is a security crisis." She clicked a remote. The wall screen lit up with the boys' footage. Different angles, different phones, 100 shaky videos. Waller paused on a frame where the boys' heat vision lit up the clouds. "Your friend," she said, "is going to get people killed." Superman's voice was controlled. "He is not my friend." Waller nodded once, like she'd expected that. "Good. Then we can speak plainly." She changed the slide to show the symbol. "We have marks," Waller said. "We have a pattern. We have no name, no origin, and no leash." Flash flinched at the word leash. Waller looked at him. "Don't like the language? Too bad. I like people alive more than I like comfort." Superman leaned forward. "We are trying to contact him peacefully." Waller's mouth barely moved. "Peacefully?" She leaned back. "Superman, I respect you. I do. But you are not trained to stop a child that can level a city block in one mistake. Your morals slow you down." Batman's voice was calm. "That's rich coming from you." Waller didn't blink. "My morals are simple. I choose the most lives saved." Diana's eyes sharpened. "Even if you destroy a child to do it." Waller's voice stayed level. "If the child is the fire, yes." Cyborg spoke, trying to bridge the gap. "We don't have enough data to decide that yet." Waller slid a folder across the table. "We're collecting data," she said, "and we're building options, with or without you." Batman opened the folder and saw the top page. Project. Red Cage. He didn't react outwardly, but Clark felt a cold spike in his chest. Clark looked at Bruce, then at Waller. "No." Waller's eyes stayed on Clark. "You don't get to say no to physics, or to governments, or to fear." Flash raised a hand like a kid in class. Question. How about we don't poke him?" Waller looked at him like he was adorable and useless. "How about we don't wait until he pokes us?" She stood. "This is what will happen. Either the League contains him, or the United States government will attempt to contain him. If your attempt fails, our attempt begins." Batman closed the folder. "You're going to start a war with a kid," Batman said. Waller answered, "If that's the price of preventing him from starting one with all of us." Superman's voice turned sharp. "You do not get to turn him into a target." Waller stepped closer, meeting Superman's height without flinching. "He already is a target," she said. "To whatever cut those satellites, to whoever sent those machines. The world has predators, Superman, and you just found a new one." Clark felt his fists tighten. Diana touched his arm once, a grounding gesture. Waller looked past them, straight at Batman. "And you," she said. "You understand. That's why you're already building a plan." Batman didn't deny it. He just said, "Plans are not permission." Waller's smile was thin. "No, they're survival." The League left the room with tension crackling behind their calm faces. In the hallway, Barry whispered, "That went badly." Victor muttered, "That went exactly how it always goes." Clark didn't speak at all. He kept seeing the boy's eyes behind the cloth mask, and he kept hearing Waller's word. Predator. That night, Batman didn't go back to Gotham. He went to the barn in Kansas. He went with Victor because Victor's scanners could see what human eyes couldn't, and because Batman didn't trust this place to stay secret. They arrived without noise. No headlights. No footsteps loud enough for a sleeping farmer to hear. The barn still had a broken wall from Superman's earlier encounter. The boards were splintered outward. Batman's boots crunched on old straw. Victor's tech eye scanned, light flickering across the walls. "There," Victor said, pointing. A faint residue pattern clung to the air, like a fingerprint made of energy. Victor knelt and placed a small device on the ground. It hummed. "Same signature as the tear," Victor said. "Weak now, but real." Batman moved deeper into the barn and stared at the tractor dent. "He lifted it," Batman said. Victor nodded. One-handed, probably. Batman crouched and looked at the dent's edges. Clean. No slipping. Victor's voice lowered. He was practicing. Batman stood and walked toward the corner where old tools hung. Something glittered under a pile of rusted chains. Batman reached down and pulled it free. A shard of metal. Not earth metal. It looked dark, almost like it drank light instead of reflecting it. It had faint lines etched into it. Not writing, but structure. Victor leaned in fast. "Where did you find that?" Batman held it carefully. Near the tractor. Like it fell out of a pocket. Victor's systems made a soft ping. "It's reacting to my scanners. It's not inert." Batman's eyes narrowed. "Pod metal." Victor glanced at him. "You're guessing." Batman's voice stayed calm. "He came in something. He isn't magic." Victor took out a sealed container. "Let's bring it to the watchtower and test it." Batman didn't argue. As they left, Victor looked at the broken barn wall and said, almost to himself, "If he has pieces of his own ship, he might be building something." Batman's voice was quiet. Or he might be removing weaknesses. Victor's head turned. "What?" Batman didn't answer. He didn't say the thought out loud because once you said it, it became more real. The thought was simple. If that shard could hurt the boy would want it gone. Back in the Watchtower lab, Victor ran tests while Batman watched in silence. The shard sat in a clear field box. It didn't move. It didn't glow. It just existed like a problem. Victor fed energy into it in small waves. No reaction. He ran heat over it. Normal heat first. Still nothing. He increased the heat. Still nothing. Batman's voice cut in. "Try his heat." Victor's jaw tightened. "We don't have his beam." Batman slid a device onto the table. Victor stared. "Is that a sample from Metropolis?" Batman didn't answer directly. There were burn trails on a rooftop vent, microscopic residue. Victor's face showed the smallest hint of respect and annoyance. "Of course you grabbed that." He ran the sample through the system and copied the energy pattern. A low hum filled the lab. A thin red line flickered in a sealed chamber, carefully contained. Victor aimed it at the shard. For the first time, the shard reacted. Not by melting, by vibrating. A faint tone rose, too high for human ears, but Victor's systems caught it and translated it into visible waves on the screen. Batman leaned closer. Victor's voice went tight. "It's resonating." Batman's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" Victor hesitated. "Meaning, his heat vision doesn't just burn. It triggers something in this material, like a key." Batman's voice was quiet. "A key to what?" Victor stared at the readings. "I don't know yet. But I know this." He tapped the screen where the resonance peaked. "If this metal is part of his origin, it might be the one thing that can interact with him in a way normal weapons can't." Batman's mouth tightened. "A weakness," Victor said, before Batman could. Batman didn't deny it. Across the lab, Superman entered. He saw the shard, the containment field, the red line. His face hardened. "No," Clark said. Batman didn't turn. "We're not using it. We're learning it." Clark stepped closer. "Learning it becomes using it, Bruce." Victor held up both hands. "Clark, we needed something. We can't keep guessing." Clark's eyes stayed on the shard. He's not a lab animal. Batman's voice stayed flat. He's not a child on a playground either. Clark's voice rose a little. Do you hear yourself? Batman finally turned to face him. I hear myself fine, Batman said. You hear what you want. You want him to be savable because you were. Clark's jaw clenched. Victor cut in fast, gentle but firm. We're not deciding tonight. We're mapping the board. That's it. Juan entered behind Clark, quiet as smoke. Clark looked at him. Did you find anything? John's eyes lowered. I tried again, only a touch, from far away. He noticed me. Batman's voice sharpened. He can detect telepathy? John nodded slowly. Not like I do. But he felt the pressure. He pushed back. Clark's stomach sank. Did you see anything? John's voice softened. A name. Everyone stilled. John continued, careful. Not a title. Not an alien word. A human name. A mother's voice calling it. Clark's heart jumped. What name? John looked at the shard, then at Clark. Brandon, he said. Flash, who had just entered with a bag of snacks he clearly regretted bringing into this mood, froze mid-step. You mean like, Brandon? Barry asked, then winced at his own words. Sorry, I mean, Brandon is normal. Batman's eyes narrowed. Do we have records? Victor pulled up a database search instantly. Brandon. What? John shook his head. Only Brandon, and a place name. I saw a sign in his memory. It said, Brightburn. The room went quiet. Victor typed fast. Brightburn isn't a city here. Batman's voice was low. But it's a name. Clark stared at John. He's not from here. John nodded. No, he remembers a farm, a small town, parents. But the edges of the memory feel off, like it belongs to another world. Batman's gaze moved back to the map of symbol sightings. Another world, another origin. And something in the dark sky that had just tested Earth like Earth was a lab rat. Batman's voice was calm, but it carried steel. We have enough to label him, not to know him. Clark looked at the shard again and felt sick. Brandon, a kid name, and yet the boy's eyes were a king's eyes. Victor's system chimed. A new signal appeared on the board. Not a probe, not a satellite cut, a whisper of data from space. Victor leaned in. We just got an incoming ping. It's shaped like Kryptonian signal architecture, but not quite. Clark's head snapped up. From where? Victor traced it. The ping pointed toward the Arctic, toward the fortress. Batman's voice was cold. That's bait. Clark's throat tightened. For who? John's eyes narrowed. For the boy. And far away, in the dark between stars, Brainiac adjusted its plan with perfect patience. It didn't roar. It didn't threaten. It simply sent a message designed to fit inside the boy's hunger, like a hook inside a mouth. You are meant to rule. They will cage you. Come to the place of Kryptonian answers. Brandon heard it like a bell inside his skull. Not the mission voice, not the old command. This was new. This was an invitation. He hovered above an empty stretch of highway at midnight, watching cars move like slow bugs below. The symbol on a nearby metal sign still steamed from where he'd cut it. He didn't know why he made the mark. He just did. It felt like leaving proof that he existed. Proof that he had been there first. Then the message arrived. A clean, cold pulse. A direction. North. Brandon's eyes lifted to the stars. He didn't know what Kryptonian meant, but he knew what answers meant. He also knew one more thing. Superman would follow. That made the pull stronger. Brandon turned into a red streak and flew into the night. North, toward ice. North, toward secrets. North, toward a place where the world might finally tell him what he was supposed to be. The Fortress of Solitude did not welcome visitors. It rose from the ice like a frozen cathedral. White crystal spires, smooth, sharp angles, no doors, no lights that a human could see. Inside, it was silent, cold, and alive with Kryptonian technology that had waited for one person. Kal-El. Brandon arrived at the edge of the glacier and hovered above the entrance point Superman used. He stared at the smooth surface. He listened. No heartbeat. No breathing. No human sounds. Good. He pushed forward. His body hit an invisible field and bounced back an inch, like the air itself had hardened. Brandon's eyes flared red. Heat vision blasted forward. The beam struck the field and scattered, not reflecting like metal, but bending like the field was made of rules. The field held. Brandon's jaw tightened. He flew back 20 feet, then shot forward with full speed. He slammed into the field like a meteor. The ice cracked. The field flickered. Brandon hit again. And again. On the third strike, the field snapped. He punched through the ice and into the fortress with a shower of frost and crystal dust. Inside, the cold was deeper. The air smelled clean, like nothing had ever lived here. Crystal walls stretched up high, glowing faintly with internal light. Brandon drifted forward, head turning slowly. He was not careful. Nothing here could hurt him, he told himself. A low tone rose around him, a warning. Then a voice filled the space, calm and alien. Unauthorized presence detected. Brandon paused. The voice continued. This is the Fortress of Solitude. Identify yourself. Brandon didn't answer. He didn't like questions. He liked commands. He floated deeper into the fortress, ignoring the voice. Crystal panels lit up along the walls, symbols, screens, holograms. Brandon reached out and grabbed one panel. It shattered in his hand like brittle glass. The fortress reacted instantly. A red beam of light shot from the ceiling and locked onto him. Not heat, not a weapon. A scan. Brandon felt it crawl over his skin. The voice returned, slightly sharper. Subject not Kryptonian. High power output detected. Defensive protocols engaged. Brandon's eyes narrowed. From the walls, crystal structures unfolded like spears. They fired. Not bullets. Energy bolts shaped to disrupt. The bolt struck Brandon's chest and shoulders. They stung, like static, like a hard slap. He didn't flinch. He grabbed a crystal spear and ripped it free, then threw it across the room. It exploded against a wall. He flew forward, faster now, ripping through defense nodes, breaking the fortress's hands as they tried to grab him. He wasn't here to fight the building. He was here to find what the message promised. Answers. He followed the largest light source deeper inside until the chamber opened wide. In the center stood a tall crystal console shaped like a simple altar. Above it floated a hologram. A man's face, strong features, calm eyes, a crest symbol on his chest. Brandon stared. The hologram spoke. "My son," it said. "If you are seeing this, then you have..." Brandon moved like a snap. He flew up and punched the hologram's projector. The image flickered, but the system was strong. The hologram returned, adjusting. "I am Jor-El," it said. "I left you guidance. I left you knowledge. I left you..." Brandon hovered, breathing steady. He didn't know the name Jor-El, but he knew what the hologram felt like. A father giving rules. Brandon's eyes glowed. Before he fired, the hologram shifted the message as if the fortress was trying to reroute its language. "Unknown subject," it said. "This knowledge is not intended for you." Brandon's mouth twitched. Not a smile, a tight line. Not intended. Like he was an accident. He fired. Heat vision cut through the console. Crystal and metal split apart. The chamber shook. Somewhere behind him, alarms rose in layers, like the fortress was calling for help. Brandon didn't care. But something caught his eye as the broken console flickered. A new hologram played by accident, like a file opened when it shouldn't. A small pod in space, a baby inside, a symbol on a blanket. Brandon froze. Not because he felt sorry, because he recognized the shape of the pod, not his pod, but similar. The hologram shifted to a new clip. A small boy on a farm, human parents, a woman smiling, a man lifting a child onto his shoulders. Brandon's chest tightened. He saw hands that looked like the hands in his memory, not the same faces, but the same kind of life. Then the clip changed. The boy in the clip grew older. He wore glasses. He fell, then stood up. He lifted something heavy and didn't hurt anyone. He saved. Brandon's eyes narrowed as if the screen offended him. The clip showed the same boy, now a man, wearing a cape. Wearing hope like armor. Brandon felt something sharp twist inside him. Not jealousy, something simpler. Disgust, as if kindness was a lie. He reached out and crushed the projector completely. The image died. The fortress went darker. And then, as the chamber trembled, Brandon felt something else. A pull. A deep, heavy hum behind the walls. It wasn't the holograms. It wasn't the defenses. It felt like a door to somewhere else. Brandon turned and followed the hum. He tore through a crystal wall and entered a smaller room. In the center was a device that looked like a circle of metal and crystal, standing upright. It crackled with contained energy. On a nearby console, Kryptonian symbols pulsed. Brandon didn't read them. He didn't need to. He could feel what it was. A cage, a door, a way to put things somewhere they couldn't fight back. Brandon's eyes glowed brighter. He stepped closer, hand reaching out. If he could use this, he could control everything. No more running, no more people trying to grab him, no more Superman standing in his way. Brandon grabbed the console and ripped it open. Energy flared. The circle device screamed with light. The hum became a roar. Ice shook. Crystal walls cracked, and a thin tear opened in the air inside the circle, black and deep like space inside a tunnel. From the tear, something moved. Not small, not scared. A hand reached through, then a shoulder. Then a whole man stepped out, breathing like he'd been holding it for years. He wore dark armor. His eyes burned with rage and purpose. General Zod looked around the room once. He saw the ice. He saw the crystal. He saw Brandon floating in a red cape with a broken mask. Zod's lip curled. Kryptonian technology, Zod said, voice rough, and a child playing dress-up. Brandon stared back, unmoved. Zod stepped forward, posture like a blade. "What house are you?" Zod demanded. "Speak!" Brandon didn't answer. Zod's eyes narrowed. "You will not ignore me!" He lunged. Zod moved with trained violence. He grabbed Brandon's cape and yanked him down, slamming him into the crystal floor. The impact cracked the ground. Brandon's head snapped to the side. For the first time in a long time, something in him felt surprise. Not fear, but surprise that someone could grab him like that. He pushed up. Zod punched him. The punch was not a wild swing. It was a soldier's strike. Brandon flew backward into a wall. Crystal shattered. Brandon stopped in the air, eyes glowing red. Zod rose into the air too, as if the fortress had given him permission to fly again. Zod looked down at Brandon like he was a tool to be used. "You have power," Zod said. "Good. Then you will obey." Brandon's mouth opened, not to speak, to scream. Heat vision fired. Zod crossed his arms and took it, teeth clenched. The beam pushed him back a few feet, but it didn't burn through. Zod growled and shot forward, closing the distance in a blink. He grabbed Brandon by the throat. Brandon's feet kicked once in the air. Zod's grip tightened. "You are not Kal-El," Zod snarled. "You are not." Brandon's hands clamped onto Zod's wrist. Then Brandon squeezed. Zod's eyes widened slightly. Not because his wrist broke, it didn't, but because the kid was strong enough to make it hurt. Brandon ripped free and slammed his forehead into Zod's face. The hit cracked like a gunshot. Zod's head snapped back. Brandon followed with a brutal kick that sent Zod crashing into a crystal pillar. The pillar exploded. Zod rose from the rubble, eyes furious. Brandon hovered, chest rising, heat vision flickering like a loaded weapon. The two of them stared at each other. One was a trained war leader. One was a child predator with no rules. And the fortress, damaged and screaming, kept the portal tear open just enough to make everything worse. Because behind Zod, shadows moved in the tear again. More shapes, more armor, more Kryptonians trying to claw their way out. Zod looked back once, then snarled, "No!" He shoved his hand toward the tear, trying to force it closed. The device fought him, unstable. Brandon watched the tear. He didn't see danger. He saw possibilities. He flew toward it. Zod shouted, "Don't!" Brandon reached into the tear like it was a toy box, and the room shook as if the world itself wanted to rip. Clark felt the fortress alarm before Victor even said the words. It hit his senses like a pressure in the air. The Arctic went from silent to wrong in a heartbeat. Clark shot north, faster than sound, leaving a line in the clouds. Diana followed. Barry ran circles around the watchtower, grabbing equipment he didn't fully understand while still complaining into comms. "Why is it always ice places?" Barry muttered. "Who decided the scary stuff loves glaciers?" Victor's voice was tight. "Barry, focus. The fortress is broadcasting a Kryptonian emergency pattern. Clark, something is in there that shouldn't be." Batman didn't ask questions. He was already moving. He didn't fly, but he had ways to arrive fast. Clark broke through the fortress entrance like a blast of wind. He saw shattered crystal, broken consoles, burn marks. He heard the roar of energy deeper inside. He followed it. When he entered the main chamber, he stopped so fast the air snapped, because he saw the tear, and he saw Zod. Zod turned and stared at him, eyes burning with hate he'd carried across lifetimes. "Kal-El," Zod said. Clark's stomach dropped. Diana arrived behind Clark, sword out. "Zod," she said, recognizing him from Clark's files and past battles. Zod's gaze flicked to her and dismissed her, then snapped back to Clark. "You built yourself a palace," Zod spat, "while Krypton died." Clark's voice was controlled. "This isn't the time." Zod laughed, harsh. "It's always time." Then Clark saw Brandon. The boy hovered near the tear, cape torn, mask cracked. And in his hand, Clark's blood ran cold. Brandon held a Kryptonian soldier by the ankle. The soldier was half out of the tear, struggling, confused, not fully in the world yet. Brandon looked at Clark like he wanted Clark to see this. Then Brandon swung the soldier and slammed him into a crystal wall. The soldier crumpled. Not dead, but hurt. Clark's voice sharpened. "Stop!" Brandon didn't. Zod roared and launched toward Brandon, fury mixed with control. Clark moved instantly, intercepting Zod midair. Their collision boomed through the fortress. Crystal dust rained down. Diana flew toward Brandon, lasso already in hand. "Enough!" she snapped. Brandon's eyes flared red. Diana threw the lasso. Brandon dodged like he'd been waiting for it. He shot past her and aimed his heat vision at the tear device itself. Clark realized what Brandon was doing too late. Brandon wasn't trying to free Kryptonians. He was trying to break the machine. If the machine shattered wrong, the tear could widen. If it widened, it could open into something the fortress couldn't control. Clark gritted his teeth. He couldn't fight Zod and stop Brandon at the same time. "Victor!" Clark shouted into comms. "I need the fortress systems locked down now!" Victor's voice came fast. "I'm linking. The fortress is rejecting me. It's damaged and angry." Barry's voice cut in, breathless. "I'm in the entrance hall, and everything is screaming at me in Kryptonian, which I do not speak, just letting everyone know." Batman's voice was calm. "Barry, don't touch anything. Victor, route through the Watchtower's Kryptonian interface. Use my access code." Victor hesitated. "You have an access code?" Batman said. "Yes." Clark didn't have time to be annoyed. Zod punched him across the room. Clark caught himself and drove back, forcing Zod away from the tear. Diana got between Brandon and the device. "Bracers up." Brandon fired heat vision. Diana blocked, the beam scattering. But the beam's edge grazed a cracked console and sparked. The tear shuddered wider. A second Kryptonian soldier stepped out and gasped in the cold air. Brandon's eyes locked onto the new arrival like a kid seeing a new toy. He flew in, grabbed the soldier, and threw him through a crystal arch. The soldier hit and slid, groaning. Diana's anger surged. "He's hurting them for fun." Clark's voice was tight. "Not fun. Control." Zod heard that and laughed, even while fighting. "You think you're special, Kal-El?" Zod snarled. "Look at him. He's what happens when power has a purpose." Clark's eyes flashed. "Power has a choice." Zod slammed him again. Clark hit the floor, cracked it, then rose. He didn't hold back on strength now, not fully, but enough to move Zod away from the tear. He grabbed Zod and drove him into the wall, pinning him. Zod struggled, furious, but Clark was stronger when he chose to be. Clark's voice dropped low. "If you touch that tear again, I will put you back in it." Zod's eyes burned. "You can try." Behind them, Brandon screamed again, heat vision flaring in a wide sweep. Diana blocked what she could, but the fortress was taking damage fast. Victor's voice cut in. "I'm in. I can stabilize the tear for 30 seconds. That's it." Clark shouted, "Do it!" The tear's edges tightened slightly, as if invisible hands grabbed it. Batman's voice came through. Crisp. "Barry, when Victor stabilizes, you run in and pull the injured Kryptonians away from the opening. You do not fight. You do not argue. You move." Barry's voice squeaked. "Yes, boss." Batman continued. "Diana, lasso the boy if you can. Don't let him touch the device." Diana grunted. "Working on it." Batman's voice lowered, meant for Clark alone. "Clark, Zod is not the main problem. The boy is." Clark's chest tightened. "I know," Batman said. "Then act like it." Clark did. He released Zod with a hard shove that sent him sliding across the floor. Then Clark flew toward Brandon. Brandon saw him coming and smiled for the first time. It wasn't a kid's smile. It was a challenge. Brandon shot straight at Clark. Clark caught him by the shoulders again. Their impact shook the room. Clark held Brandon in place with iron control, keeping his hands away from the tear device. "Brandon," Clark said, testing the name. Brandon's eyes flickered. Just once. He knew the name. Clark pushed gently but firmly. "Listen to me. You don't have to do this." Brandon's eyes glowed brighter. He tried to twist free. Clark tightened his grip. "Stop," Clark said, voice hard now. "People are getting hurt." Brandon stared into Clark's face like he was deciding what kind of enemy Clark would be. Then Brandon fired heat vision. Not at Clark. Past Clark. At the ceiling. Clark's eyes widened. The beam cut a support crystal. A whole chunk of the ceiling broke loose, falling toward the tear device and the wounded Kryptonians near it. It was a distraction. Clark moved instantly, letting Brandon go to catch the falling mass. He caught it, threw it aside. And in that same moment, Brandon slipped past Diana and grabbed the tear console again. Diana shouted and threw her lasso. This time, it caught. The golden rope wrapped Brandon's wrist. It tightened. Truth and force. Brandon's body stiffened. For a second, the fortress went quiet enough to hear the ice settling outside. Diana pulled, teeth clenched. "Who sent you here?" Brandon's mouth opened. A sound came out. Not a word. A low, angry growl. His eyes flared so bright the mask holes looked like red lamps. The lasso strained. Then Brandon yanked. Hard. Diana's feet slid across the crystal floor. She dug in, bracers tight, muscles locked. Brandon didn't just pull her. He pulled the whole room's balance toward him. Clark saw it. If Brandon pulled Diana into the tier device, she could hit it. If it broke, the tier could explode open. Clark shot forward and grabbed the lasso too, adding his strength to Diana's. Between them, they stopped Brandon's pull. Brandon's face turned toward them, expression flat again. Then he did the simplest, cruelest thing. He let go. Not of the device, of the lasso. He released his wrist and slipped out like he'd planned for that rope. The lasso snapped back into Diana's hands. Brandon slammed both palms into the tier console. Heat vision flashed into the machine at point-blank range. The shard of pod alloy Victor had found was not here to react, not here to help. The fortress screamed. Victor shouted, "Clark, the tear is destabilizing. I can't hold it." Barry ran in a blur, grabbing 2 wounded Kryptonians and dragging them away. He yelled while running, "I did not sign up for alien daycare!" Batman's voice snapped. "Dway! Barry!" Barry screamed back. "I'm doing it!" Zod roared and charged toward Brandon, fury returning. "You fool!" Zod shouted. "You'll tear this world open?" Brandon turned and met Zod head-on. They collided. Zod grabbed Brandon's cape and tried to slam him down again. Brandon grabbed Zod's armor and ripped. Metal tore with a horrible sound. Zod's eyes widened. Diana flew in, sword raised, not to kill Brandon, but to cut the console's power line, to separate the machine from the boy. Clark moved with her. Together, they struck. Diana cut through a crystal conduit. Clark ripped a power core free. The tear shuddered, tightened, then began to close like an eye forced shut. Zod pushed a hand into the shrinking opening, snarling, trying to keep it open for his soldiers. Clark grabbed Zod and yanked him back. The tear snapped smaller. 2 Kryptonian shapes still inside the breach screamed as they were pulled back into the Phantom Zone. Barry flinched. "Oh man. Oh man." The tear became a thin slit. Then it sealed. Silence hit the room like a blanket. Ice settled. Alarms faded to a low, wounded hum. Diana lowered her sword, breathing hard. Clark turned toward Brandon. Brandon hovered in the air, chest rising, mask cracked, cape torn, eyes still glowing faintly. Behind him, Zod rose too, armor ripped, face twisted with hate. Clark's voice went low. "It ends now." Brandon looked at him for a long second. Then Brandon's gaze shifted. Not to Zod, not to Diana. To a crystal shelf behind the broken console, where a small, bright data crystal sat. One of many, but pulsing with fresh access. Brandon moved like a snap. He grabbed the crystal. Clark lunged. Diana lunged. Zod lunged too, shouting, "Mine!" Brandon shot upward, slamming through a crystal arch. Clark followed, but Brandon's speed was sharp and strange, like he didn't fly in curves. He flew in brutal lines. They burst out of the fortress into Arctic night. Stars above, ice below. Brandon rocketed away across the sky, a red streak over endless white. Clark chased, closing distance fast. But then Brandon did something Clark didn't expect. He turned mid-flight and fired his heat vision, not at Clark's body, but at the ice sheet below. A long, clean cut split the glacier. The surface cracked. A whole section of ice began to drop into the sea. Clark's eyes widened. He could catch Brandon, or he could save the ice shelf collapsing toward the ocean, a collapse that could send a wave toward coastal towns and research stations. Clark chose the only choice he could live with. He broke off and dove down, hands out, stopping the ice, pushing it back into place with careful, massive strength. By the time he stabilized it, Brandon was gone, a red dot fading into dark. Clark hovered above the glacier, chest tight, and stared at the sky like it had betrayed him. He heard Diana land behind him. "He planned that," Diana said, voice hard. Clark nodded, barely able to speak. He always plans for collateral. Batman's voice came through comms, calm and grim. "He got something from the fortress," Victor added, "and he left it damaged, but stable." Barry's voice came in exhausted. "Also, just so you know, the fortress just sent me a repair invoice." There was a pause. Clark almost laughed, but it didn't make it out. Batman said, "Send it to me." Barry blinked. "Wait. What?" Batman repeated. "Send it to me." Barry whispered, "Okay, that's terrifying." Clark turned back toward the fortress entrance, where cold air spilled out like breath. Inside, Zod was still there, not contained, not gone. A war leader loose in a world he hated. And Brandon. Brandon had just learned something important, not from words, from images, from proof, that in another life, with another family, with another heart, someone like him had chosen to be a hero. And Brandon did not feel inspired. He felt insulted. Brandon landed on a lonely stretch of ice far from the fortress, far from anyone who could follow his trail easily. He stood still for a moment, letting the wind hit his torn cape. He looked down at the crystal in his hand. It glowed faintly, like a captured star. He squeezed it once, testing it. It didn't break. Good. He lifted it toward his face. The crystal projected a small hologram on the air, like a floating screen. Brandon watched. A farm, a boy, human parents, a man in glasses smiling in a small kitchen. Then the same man in a cape, saving people, lifting debris, catching falling planes. A symbol, a bright S. Brandon's jaw clenched. He didn't understand the symbol's meaning fully, but he understood what it made people feel. Hope, trust, love. Things that made people soft. Things that made people think someone would save them. Brandon's eyes glowed red. For a second, he almost fired at the hologram, like he wanted to burn the idea itself. Then he stopped. Because the hologram wasn't just showing Superman, it was also showing Kryptonian tech menus, fortress layouts, device functions. It was information. And information was power. Brandon closed his fist around the crystal and shut the projection off. He stared north, toward the fortress, even though he couldn't see it from here. He could feel Superman out there, somewhere, trying to hold the world together, trying to fix what Brandon broke. Brandon didn't hate Superman for his strength. Brandon hated him for his choice. Because Superman proved something Brandon didn't want to be true. That power didn't decide the path. The person did. Brandon lifted into the air. The wind tore at his cape. He didn't care. He turned toward the south, toward cities, toward people who looked up and believed. And somewhere above the world, far beyond the clouds, Brainiac watched the tremor from the fortress breach and adjusted its cold plan again. Earth now had two rare things in one place, a Kryptonian and a variant with a predator's heart. Brainiac did not smile. It did not need to. It only needed to collect. Brandon became a red streak across the night, and for the first time since he arrived, he wasn't only running on the old command in his head, take the world. Now he also had a new thought, sharp and personal, take it from him. 2 weeks after the night the sky tore open, Metropolis started looking up the way Gotham did. Not with wonder, with caution. People still went to work. Kids still ran to school. Food carts still opened on corners. But everyone's eyes kept drifting to open space between buildings, like the air itself might turn dangerous again. Clark Kent stood inside the Daily Planet lobby and watched a security guard tape a new sign near the elevators. "If you see a red streak, move inside." Lois walked up beside him, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. "They're scared," she said quietly. Clark's voice stayed soft. "I know." Lois watched him for a second. She could tell when he wanted to fly up and fix something that couldn't be fixed by lifting it. "You're not sleeping," she said. Clark tried to smile. It didn't land. "Somebody has to stay awake." Lois lowered her voice even more. "I got a text the other day. An unknown number. Warning me." Clark's eyes sharpened. What did it say? Lois didn't repeat the exact words. She didn't want to feed the fear. "That this is different." Clark nodded. "It is." Lois took a sip, then said the hardest part out loud. "Clark, do you think he can change?" Clark didn't answer right away, because he was Superman, and he believed people could choose. But Brandon didn't feel like a person making a bad choice. He felt like a storm choosing where to land. "I don't know," Clark admitted, "but I can't stop trying." Lois's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then rolled her eyes. "What now?" Clark asked. Lois turned the screen toward him. A headline. "Luther announces Human Defense Initiative Against Alien Threats." Clark's jaw tightened. Lois didn't sound surprised. He's building his story. He'll make himself the solution. Clark's eyes lifted to the skyline. "And Waller will make herself the hammer." Lois looked at him. "Be careful with both." Clark nodded once. Then his hearing caught a distant sound that made his whole body go still. A thin, sharp crack in the air. Not thunder. Not a plane. A sonic pop. High above the city, something moved too fast for most eyes to see. Clark's face changed. Lois saw it. "Is that?" she started. Clark stepped back, already gone in a blur. Lois watched the empty space he left behind and whispered to herself, "Please don't be him." On the watchtower, Victor Stone watched the world like it was one big hospital monitor. Red dots on maps, heat spikes, unusual pressure shifts in the air, emergency feeds. Batman stood behind him, arms folded, silent as always. Diana sat with her sword across her lap, sharpening it slowly with a stone. Not because it needed it, because it calmed her. Barry paced, holding a tablet. Every few minutes the tablet chimed. Barry would look down, then groan, then pace faster. Victor finally said, "Barry, if you read another repair invoice out loud, I'm muting your mic." Barry held up the tablet defensively. "I'm not doing it for fun. It just keeps happening." Batman's voice was dry. "Cities cost money." "Stop whining." Barry stared at him. "Do you hear yourself? That sentence coming from you is terrifying." Batman didn't blink. Victor zoomed the map and tapped a new cluster of symbols. "They're spreading," Victor said. "He's leaving the mark outside Metropolis now too. Highways, rooftops, water towers, places people will see." Diana's voice was tight. "He wants the world to remember him." John stood near the center of the room, eyes closed. He opened them slowly. "He's restless," John said. Batman's head angled. "You can feel him again?" "Barely," John replied. "He has learned how to push back. He still thinks in simple lines. Take, rule, remove threats." Clark arrived in a blur of wind and stopped in front of them. He looked like he'd been holding his breath for days. "He was over the city," Clark said. "Just for a second. He wanted me to see him." Batman's voice stayed calm. "Where did he go?" Clark shook his head. He vanished into cloud cover. He changes angles fast now. Victor spoke quickly. That's not all. Fortress systems updated. Someone accessed Kryptonian files during the breach. Some of those files are missing. Clark's stomach dropped. He already knew the answer, but he asked anyway. Brandon took them, Clark said. Victor nodded. He took a data crystal. Batman stepped forward. Then he has information, and information makes him more dangerous. Diana looked at Clark. What about Zod? Clark's jaw tightened. We contained him, back in the Phantom Zone. It took everything to do it without tearing the fortress apart again. Barry exhaled hard. Thank you. Seriously. I did not want General Angry Space Dad wandering around. Batman didn't react to the joke. He reached into a case on a nearby table and opened it. Inside was a dark shard of metal, now shaped into something new. Not a bullet. Not a blade meant to kill. A thin, hooked piece, like a restraint clasp. Another piece like a short spear tip. Smooth edges. Clean design. Clark's eyes narrowed. Bruce. Batman's voice was controlled. We tested the alloy. Victor confirmed it resonates to his energy output. We shaped it. Victor added, we don't know if it will weaken him like kryptonite weakens you. He isn't Kryptonian. But it interacts with him. It's the first real tool we have. Clark's chest tightened. A tool to do what? Batman met his gaze. To hold him for seconds. Seconds are the difference between saving a city and losing one. Clark looked at the metal like it was a sin made physical. Diana's voice softened slightly. Clark, if he gives us no choice. Clark's eyes flicked up. I know. John stepped closer. He's not coming to us. He's moving towards something. Victor's screens flashed. A new alert pulsed green. Victor's face changed. Barry said, already dreading it. That's not a repair invoice, right? Victor didn't answer him. He zoomed into orbit. Small green lights, too many to count, appeared like fireflies. Batman's voice went cold. They're back. Victor swallowed. Not just probes. A larger structure is forming in high orbit. It's not a ship landing. It's a platform. Clark's stomach sank. Diana's eyes narrowed. A platform for what? Victor whispered. For collection. John's voice went quiet. The mind in the dark is returning. Batman didn't waste time. Clark, he said, we end this before it becomes public. Barry blurted, how exactly do we stop the universe's creepiest librarian? Batman's answer was simple. We don't let him take anything. Clark looked at the orbit map, then out the watchtower window toward Earth. And Brandon, Clark said, is exactly what he came for. Brandon hovered above an empty stretch of farmland at sunset, far from big cities and cameras. He didn't pick the place because it was peaceful. He picked it because it was open. Nothing to hide behind. Nothing to break that would make him feel distracted. And because he could hear Superman coming from miles away. The air changed first. A pressure shift. A soft rush. Then Superman appeared. Slowing down on purpose. Not charging. Not attacking. Brandon's eyes tracked him without blinking. Superman hovered 30 feet away, hands open. His voice came out steady. Brandon. Brandon didn't answer. Superman didn't push. He kept it simple. I know that name matters to you, Superman said. Even if you don't want it to. Brandon's jaw tightened. The mask was gone now. He didn't wear it anymore. He didn't need to pretend. His face was young. His eyes were not. Superman's chest tightened when he saw that face in the daylight. It made everything feel worse. You took the crystal, Superman said. You saw things in my fortress. Brandon's lips moved slightly. Lies. Superman blinked. What? Brandon's voice was flat. That life. That kindness. That symbol. He said the last word like it tasted bad. Superman took a slow breath. It's not a lie. It's a choice. Brandon's eyes glowed faintly. Choice is for weak people. Superman's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone calm. No. Choice is what makes you strong. Brandon's heat rose, visible in the way the air shimmered around him. You want me to be you, Brandon said. You want me to kneel and smile and save. Superman didn't deny it. He just said, I want you to stop hurting people. Brandon hovered, silent, like he was weighing whether Superman's words were worth his time. Then the sky above them pulsed green, not lightning, a clean, cold light, like a scanner line made visible. Brandon's head snapped up. Superman looked up too. The clouds parted as if something pushed them aside from above. A small object descended, not falling, lowering like it was being placed. A drone. Green glow. Smooth metal. No face. It stopped in the air between them. A voice came from it, calm and empty, like a machine trying to sound polite. Brandon Breyer, it said. Superman's eyes widened. Brandon's face didn't change, but something inside him did. Because the voice knew his name. The drone continued. You are rare. You are powerful. You are wasted on a planet that fears you. Superman moved a step forward. Who are you? The drone didn't look at him. It didn't need to. I am Brainiac, it said. Collector, curator, preserver of worlds. Brandon's eyes stayed locked on it. Why? Because you belong with truth, Brainiac said. Not with chains. Superman's heart pounded. He could feel the trap forming. Brainiac's voice stayed calm. These heroes will try to control you. Their governments will hunt you. Their billionaires will cage you. They will call it safety. Superman's voice rose. He's a child, Brainiac answered without emotion. He is an asset. Brandon's lips twitched. Not a smile. Something colder. Asset, Brandon repeated. Brainiac continued. I offer you a place where your power is not questioned, where your rule is natural. Superman snapped. He won't be your weapon. Brainiac's drone turned slightly toward Superman for the first time. You misunderstand, it said. He will be my partner. Brandon's eyes glowed brighter. Partner sounded better than child, better than problem, better than monster. Superman felt a sharp fear. Brandon, Superman said, voice low and urgent. Don't listen to it. Brandon looked at Superman, and in that look, Superman saw the truth. Brandon didn't want comfort. He wanted permission. Brainiac was offering him that. The drone lowered slightly, as if bowing. Choose, Brainiac said. Rule with me, or be hunted by them. Superman reached out, palm open. Choose yourself. Not him. Brandon stared at Superman's hand like it was an insult. Then, far away, another sound arrived. Rotor blades. Fast. Batman didn't show up with a speech. He showed up with contingency. A Batcraft screamed over the field at low altitude. It dropped 3 canisters that hit the ground and rolled. They didn't explode into fire. They released thick smoke and a lattice of dark filament that spread like a net across the air. The filament wasn't normal. It shimmered with the same dull, light-drinking look as the shard in the Watchtower lab. Pod alloy. Brandon's eyes narrowed. He felt it. Not pain. Not weakness. Something like resistance. Like the air had teeth. Batman's voice hit comms, sharp. Clark, move civilians out of a 50-mile radius, now! Clark snapped. There are no civilians here. Batman replied. Then keep it that way. Diana's voice joined. I'm inbound. Barry's voice followed, strained. Also inbound. And yes, I'm terrified. Brainiac's drone watched the net spread with calm interest. Fascinating, Brainiac said. They have learned. Brandon looked at the net, then at Superman. Then, at the drone, Superman's voice softened again. "Brandon, please." Brandon made his choice with a single movement. He shot forward and punched Superman in the chest hard enough to knock him back through the smoke. Not because he wanted Superman gone, because he wanted Superman to understand. Then Brandon turned and flew straight into the net. The filament grabbed him. For the first time since he arrived, Brandon stopped in the air without choosing to. His eyes flared bright red. He fired heat vision at the filament. The alloy didn't melt. It vibrated. It hummed with a high tone that made the air around Brandon shake. Brandon's body stiffened. His heat vision flickered. Superman recovered instantly and flew back toward him, but stopped short. He saw Brandon's jaw tighten. He saw something like irritation become real anger. Batman's voice came through again. "It holds for seconds, that's all." Seconds. Superman hated the idea, but he understood the math. Brainiac's drone spoke softly, almost pleased. "You see? They cage you." Brandon's eyes snapped to the drone. The net still held him, but Brandon didn't panic. He did something else. He focused. His heat vision narrowed, not wide, not wild. A thin, precise line. He didn't aim at the net. He aimed at the ground below it. He cut a perfect circle in the dirt. The ground dropped. The net sagged as its anchor points lost support. Brandon fell through the gap, ripped free by gravity for half a second, then shot upward again before the net could tighten. Batman's voice went flat. He adapted. Superman's stomach sank. Brandon hovered again, free, and looked down at the cut circle in the ground like he'd proven a point. Then he looked at Brainiac's drone and said the first clear thing he'd said all day. "Take me," Brandon said. Superman's chest tightened. "Brandon." Brandon didn't look at him. Not to be saved, not to be watched, to rule. Brainiac's drone glowed brighter. "Accepted." The drone fired a green beam upward into the clouds. A response came instantly. The sky above them lit with a wide, faint grid. Metropolis, far away, would soon see it. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a trigger. And Brainiac was done whispering. Now Brainiac was reaching. Metropolis felt it before it saw it. A pressure in the air, a vibration in glass. Then the clouds above the city parted, and the grid appeared like a giant net laid over the sky. Green lines stretched from horizon to horizon. Phones came out again, shaking hands pointing up. On the watchtower, Victor's screens exploded with alerts. "It's starting," Victor said, voice tight. "A partial bottling scan, he's mapping the city at collection-level detail." Barry stared at the map. Is he gonna put Metropolis in a jar? Victor's jaw clenched. "If the platform locks, yes." Batman's voice cut in. "Split the team. Priority 1, stop the lock." Clark was already moving. "I'm going to the platform." Diana stepped beside him. "I'll handle drones in the city. Keep people alive." John's voice came calm. "I will shield minds from panic where I can." Barry swallowed. Cool. I'll do evacuation. Again." Victor turned toward Batman. "And you?" Batman's eyes were hard. "I'm going for Brandon." Clark's voice snapped. "Bruce." Batman cut him off. "He chose. Now we contain." Clark hated it. But there wasn't time to argue. The League burst into motion. Flash became a red blur in the streets, guiding people into subways and reinforced shelters. He didn't carry them all. There were too many. He moved signs, opened barriers, cleared jams, shouted directions. Every few blocks, his tablet chimed. He glanced down while running and groaned. "Now is not the time, city accounting." Cyborg opened portals on rooftops to move emergency crews faster. He jammed signals, blocked drone links, and fought the platform's code like it was a living thing. Wonder Woman rose above the streets and met Brainiac's new drones head-on. They were bigger than the last probes, heavier, built for battle. She didn't waste time talking. She cut them down, knocked them away from skyscrapers, and used her bracers to deflect scanning beams away from crowds. John hovered over a park where people had gathered, frozen in fear. He touched minds gently, not controlling, just calming. Breathe. Move. Follow the flash. You are not alone. Above the clouds, Superman hit the platform like a comet. It wasn't a ship with doors. It was a machine built like a ring, thick and layered, with green light flowing through it like blood. Superman grabbed the outer edge and tried to tear it. The platform pushed back with a gravity field that made his body feel heavy. Not enough to stop him, enough to slow him. Superman snarled under his breath and pulled harder. Metal screamed. Green light flared. From the platform, a larger construct rose. Not a robot with a face, a shape like a tall figure made of green energy and sharp edges, designed to fight in the way Superman fought. It hit him. Superman flew backward, caught himself, and slammed into it with full strength. The construct didn't bleed, but it broke. Superman ripped it apart in 2 moves and threw the pieces into space. More rose. Brainiac wasn't trying to win with one punch. Brainiac was trying to stall, because the lock was still building. And down below, Brandon was still part of the plan. Batman reached the farmland again in minutes, not by speed, but by preparation. He landed at the edge of the field where the pod alloy net had cut the earth. The air still hummed faintly. Diana's lasso lay coiled where it had fallen. The smoke had cleared, and Brandon was gone. But Batman didn't stop. He activated a small tracker in his glove and watched it ping. The alloy had resonance. Victor had tuned it. If Brandon's energy brushed the alloy again, the tracker would catch an echo. A ping appeared. Not far. Toward Metropolis. Batman's voice went into comms. He's heading into the city. He wants to be seen when the bottle closes. Clark's voice came strained from orbit. He's part of the lock. Batman answered. Then we remove him. Batman launched again, low and fast. Threading between air traffic cleared by emergency protocols. He saw the green grid over Metropolis now, brighter, thicker. He saw drones in the sky like a swarm, and he saw a red streak cut between buildings like it owned the air. Brandon. Batman didn't chase him like a dog chasing a car. He cut ahead. He chose the battlefield. He aimed for a place with thick stone, wide space, minimal civilians. A construction site near the river, mostly empty after evacuation. Tall cranes, concrete slabs, deep pits. Batman landed and planted 3 alloy anchors into the ground. They looked like small black spikes. Victor's voice came through. Bruce, those are live? Batman said. Yes. Victor's tone sharpened. You'll light him up on every scan. Batman's answer was simple. Good. Brandon arrived like a bullet. He stopped midair above the site and looked down at Batman. For a second, the green grid overhead hummed louder, like it noticed them too. Batman didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He said one thing, blunt and true. You chose a cage. Brandon's eyes glowed. I chose a throne. Batman lifted a small device in his hand. The pod alloy spear tip was mounted to it, not as a weapon to stab deep, but as a contact point. A key. Brandon tilted his head, curious. Batman pressed the trigger. A pulse fired from the alloy anchors in the ground, a tight resonance wave that matched Brandon's energy pattern. The air around Brandon vibrated. His body stiffened in the air for a fraction of a second. Not weak. Interrupted. Brandon's eyes widened, just a little. Batman used that fraction. He launched an alloy restraint line. Thin, dark, fast, and it wrapped Brandon's forearms and chest. It didn't crush him. It limited his angles. It forced him closer to the ground. Brandon snarled, a raw sound, and fired heat vision. Batman had already moved. The beam cut through a crane instead, slicing it clean. The crane began to fall toward the river. Before it could hit, a blue-red blur caught it. Superman. He had broken away from the platform for a second because he felt the danger in the city. He lowered the crane into the river gently, then turned and saw Brandon bound over the construction site. Clark's chest tightened. Batman's voice hit comms. "Now, Victor." Cyborg opened a portal nearby. Not a normal portal. A controlled phantom zone slit, stabilized by fortress code and watchtower power. A thin, dark window in the air, crackling at the edges. Clark's stomach dropped. "No." Batman didn't look at him. "Yes." Brandon thrashed, heat vision flaring, but the alloy kept his arms just offline enough to stop a clean shot at the portal. Diana arrived overhead, ready, lasso in hand. She looked from Clark to Batman, then to Brandon. Her voice was low. "We do this fast." Clark hovered closer, face tight. "Brandon, don't make this worse." Brandon looked at Clark with pure hate. "You would put me in a hole," Brandon said. Clark's voice cracked slightly. "I'm trying to keep you from killing people." Brandon's eyes flashed. "Then stop being in my way." He surged. The alloy restraints strained. Batman's anchors hummed, trying to keep the resonance active. For a moment, Brandon's strength pushed through anyway. Because he was not Kryptonian. He did not weaken. He adapted. He turned his heat vision inward, firing a burst at the anchor line, not to melt it, but to overload the resonance. The alloy screamed with vibration. One anchor snapped free and skittered across the concrete. Brandon's arms loosened. Clark moved instantly, grabbing Brandon from behind and lifting him, forcing him away from the city line. Batman's voice was sharp. "Clark, hold him over the portal!" Clark hated the order, but he also saw the green grid above them growing brighter. The bottle lock was nearing. If they failed, Metropolis could disappear. Clark gritted his teeth and did it. He held Brandon above the phantom zone slit, arms locked, face grim. Diana threw her lasso and caught Brandon's wrist again, adding a second restraint with magic truth. "Brandon Breyer," she said, voice like a judge. "You will stop." Brandon screamed, not in pain, in rage. Then something else happened. The air went cold. Not Arctic cold. Space cold. A shadow passed over the city. Everyone looked up. A massive green-lit form appeared above the clouds, not fully descending, but present enough to make the sky feel owned. Brainiac's platform had shifted position. Brainiac's attention had narrowed. A new beam fired from above and struck the area around Brandon. A gravity cage formed, stronger than before. It grabbed Brandon, Superman, Diana, everyone in a tight bubble of force. Clark felt his body grow heavy. Diana's boots pressed into the concrete. Batman's cape snapped as the force tried to crush the space around them. Brainiac's voice came from everywhere at once, not from a drone now. "Excellent," Brainiac said. "Conflict produces clarity." Brandon's eyes widened. Not fear, recognition. He could feel the cage wasn't aimed to kill him. It was aimed to take him. Superman growled, pushing against the gravity field. "Brainiac," Brainiac answered calmly. "Kal-El, you continue to resist preservation." Clark snapped. "You're not preserving anything, you're stealing!" Brainiac's voice stayed even. "Stealing is a human concept. I curate." Brandon looked up into the green-lit sky, breath heavy. "Take me," Brandon said again, louder. Clark's chest tightened. "Brandon, he'll cage you too." Brandon's eyes locked onto Clark. "Then I'll break his cage later." Batman's eyes narrowed. That was it. That was Brandon's mind in one sentence. Use, take, break. Rule. Victor's voice came through comms, strained. Clark, I'm close to breaking the platform's lock, but I need a power surge, a big one. Clark gritted his teeth. From where? Victor hesitated. From the gravity cage. If we reverse it for 1 second, it could overload their scan. Batman didn't ask for permission. He grabbed the alloy spear device and jammed it into the edge of the gravity field like a tuning fork into glass. The field vibrated. Batman shouted, Victor, now! Victor slammed code into the system. The gravity cage shuddered. For 1 second, the force flipped. Instead of crushing inward, it surged outward. Green light flashed. The scan grid above Metropolis flickered. Cyborg screamed through comms. Lock disrupted! Keep it going! Superman used the outward surge like a spring. He ripped free of the cage and rocketed upward toward the platform again. He didn't stop to fight constructs. He went for the heart. He grabbed 2 thick support beams on the platform ring and tore them apart with brutal strength. The ring screamed with green light. Down below, the grid over Metropolis flickered harder. People saw the lines dim. They cheered too early. Brainiac's voice turned slightly sharper. Kal-El. More constructs poured out. Superman moved like a hurricane now, breaking them, throwing them aside, refusing to be slowed. On the ground, Diana and Batman fought to keep Brandon from slipping free during the chaos. The lasso tightened. The alloy anchors hummed. Brandon's heat vision flashed, wild now, hitting concrete, slicing slabs, sending dust up like a storm. Barry arrived in a blur, dragging the last few trapped workers out of a nearby building. He saw Brandon and gulped. Hi, Barry said, voice too bright. Still not a fan of talking, huh? Brandon didn't even look at him. Barry's tablet chimed again. Barry glanced down mid-crisis and let out a broken laugh. Metropolis, stop sending me bills! Batman snapped. Barry! Barry flinched. Right. Sorry. Cyborg's voice came through. Portal stability is fading. We either commit or close it. Clark hovered back down, breathing hard, eyes locked on Brandon. Brandon looked up at him, smiling again, that cold challenge smile. You won't do it, Brandon said. Clark's voice was low. I don't want to. Brandon's eyes flared. Then you lose. Clark felt the truth hit him like a punch. If he refused every hard choice, Brandon would keep using that refusal as a weapon. Clark tightened his grip and angled Brandon over the Phantom Zone slit again. Diana pulled with the lasso. Batman re-anchored the snapped spike with a second one. Hands moving fast. Brandon fought like a trapped animal that didn't feel fear, only rage. He kicked. He twisted. He tried to burn his way free. But for once, the team had tools that matched his level for seconds. Seconds mattered. Clark pushed. Brandon's body crossed the edge of the portal. The air around him crackled. For a heartbeat, Brandon's eyes widened in real surprise. Then Brandon did one last thing. He reached out and grabbed Clark's forearm with iron grip. He tried to pull Clark in too. Clark's heart jumped. Diana shouted, "Clark!" Batman lunged and grabbed Clark's cape, anchoring him like a lifeline. Clark strained, muscles locked, refusing to let Brandon drag him. Brandon's grip tightened. Then the portal stuttered. Not because of Brandon, because something above had moved. A green beam descended from the platform like a hook. It wrapped around Brandon mid-fall. Brainiac had chosen. Not Metropolis. Not the city. The specimen. The beam yanked Brandon upward out of the portal's pull like a fish pulled from water. Brandon shot into the sky, still struggling, still screaming, but moving too fast now to catch. Clark reached up, but he was a half-second late. Brandon vanished into the green-lit clouds toward the platform. The Phantom Zone slit snapped shut with a crack, the last chance gone. On the watchtower, Victor shouted, "Clark, the lock is collapsing! Do it! Now!" Clark shot upward again, fury and fear mixing in his chest. He tore through the last line of constructs and slammed into the platform's core. He ripped out a glowing node and crushed it. The platform's green light flickered violently. The grid over Metropolis shattered like a broken hologram. The pressure in the city released. People stumbled, gasping, like they'd been holding breath they didn't know they held. The platform didn't explode. It folded. Pieces rotated and pulled inward. Brainiac didn't flee like a beaten villain. It withdrew like a scientist closing a notebook. As the platform retreated into the dark edge of space, Brainiac's voice echoed one last time across the comm channels. "Kal-El," it said, "you have protected your city, but you have revealed your limits." Clark hovered above the clouds, chest heaving, watching the green light fade. He searched for Brandon. He couldn't see him. Batman's voice came through, grim. "Brainiac took him." Diana's voice was tight. "Or he went willingly." Clark didn't answer, because both felt true, and both felt like failure. On the ground, Barry looked up at the now normal sky and whispered, "Please tell me we're done." His tablet chimed again. Barry stared at it, then laughed weakly. It's a thank you message," he said. Batman's voice cut in. "From who?" Barry blinked. "Metropolis City Transit. They say, 'Thank you for your service.' And also, there's still an invoice." Batman sighed. "Send it." Barry looked at Diana, then Clark, then Batman, and said softly, "Okay, Bruce. You're definitely not okay." The watchtower was quiet later. Not the tense quiet of waiting. A tired quiet. Like the world had survived another night and didn't want to speak too loudly about it. Clark stood by a window, looking down at Earth. His cape hung still. Behind him, Diana rested her hands on the back of a chair, posture straight even when exhausted. Victor sat at his console, running deep scans to make sure no hidden lock remained. Barry slumped in a chair with his tablet face down like it was a bad dream. Batman stood at a smaller screen, typing into a file. Clark didn't need to ask what file. Batman's fingers moved with cold focus. Clark finally said, "He's gone." John's voice came gently from the shadows. "For now." Clark turned slightly. "Can you feel him?" John shook his head. "Not here. Not on Earth." Clark's chest tightened. "Then Brainiac has him." Batman didn't stop typing. "Or he has Brainiac." Barry lifted his head. "That's not comforting." Batman's voice stayed flat. "It's true." Victor spoke without looking up. "Brainiac retreated with partial data. He knows our patterns now." Diana's eyes narrowed. "He will return." Victor nodded. "Yes." Barry lifted his tablet and sighed dramatically. "Can he return to somewhere else? Like the moon? Or a place with fewer invoices?" Clark almost smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Batman finished typing and saved the file. He said, quiet but clear, "Power wasn't the problem." Clark looked at him. Batman continued, "The heart was." Clark's jaw tightened. He's still a kid. Batman didn't argue the age. He argued the truth. "And he chose," Batman said. Clark looked down at Earth again. He thought of the moment Brandon said, "Take me." Not to be saved. To rule. Clark felt something heavy settle in him. Not hatred. Not anger. A grief he didn't know what to do with, because he had spent his whole life proving power could be used to protect, and Brandon had arrived as proof that power could also be used to take. Barry's tablet chimed one more time. Barry didn't even look. He groaned. "If that's another invoice." Victor finally smiled a little. "It's not." Barry blinked. "What is it?" Victor turned the screen slightly. A single line. Watchtower system note. City damage. Reports resolved. Barry stared at it, then leaned back, eyes closed. Thank you. Thank you. Universe. Diana exhaled, a small sound that might have been a laugh. Clark stood in the quiet and let that tiny bit of normal humor exist. Because they needed it. Because the world kept moving. And because somewhere out in the dark, the problem wasn't solved, just moved. Far from Earth, inside a cold, green-lit chamber, a small containment pod slid into place. Not a prison cell with bars, a clear field with rules. Inside it, Brandon hovered in silence. His cape was gone now. He didn't need it. Outside the field, machines moved. Lights pulsed. Data flowed. Brainiac's ship felt less like a place and more like a living system. A voice filled the chamber, calm as always. You will be cataloged, Brainiac said. Then you will be assigned purpose. Brandon didn't answer. He stared at the edge of the field where the energy shimmered. He reached out and pressed a hand against it. It resisted him. Not enough to stop him forever. Enough to remind him that Brainiac didn't give gifts. Brainiac traded control for control. Brandon's eyes glowed faintly red. He didn't blast the field. He didn't waste energy. Instead, he looked down at the metal base of the pod, where solid matter met the energy line. He extended one finger. He pressed. The metal didn't dent at first. Then it did. Slowly, cleanly. Brandon carved a simple mark into it, a symbol he had cut into Earth's signs and rooftops. A mark that meant, I was here. I will be here again. He finished the last line and lifted his finger. The symbol sat there on Brainiac's metal like a promise. Brandon looked up, eyes calm. He didn't need to speak. His choice had already been made. The universe was still a world, and he still meant to take it.